G'day. Today we're doing a bit of work on a Volvo 2013 model XC90, and this one's come in with the floating shifts, or the RPMs are just sort of wavering while it's in gear. So what we're going to do, we've had the scan tool on there, not much showing up on it, and basically what happens is the solenoids wear out or get contaminated. They've got linear solenoids, so they're a little bit more difficult to repair. You've got to pull them apart with a special tool. So what we're going to opt for is replacing the whole valve body. These have the TF80SC transmission, and the valve body's actually located on the side of the transmission. On the front there'll be a little cover. So we're going to take the airbox off and try and make a little bit more access to it. You'll notice that the subframe's in the way of that cover and valve body as well. So we've got to either lift the motor or lower the subframe. So we'll just whiz off this. You'll notice that the PCM's right there. You just press these little clips here and that'll just slide out. Like that. It's a little bit stuck. There we go. Haven't been off for a while. And we'll just take that whole airbox off. We'll undo these plugs here. You just press that little clip there and slide it off. And any other plugs that are there, we'll remove them. T27. Bit dirty in there. Another little vacuum hose here. There we go. And another one there. A bit tight. A little bit more access there. We'll just take this hose off here and just support that motor, because we've got to actually lift the motor up a little bit so we can clear that subframe there and get that front cover off. Okay, getting there. You can see we've got a lot more access there. The pipe just needs to be pushed out of the way. I think there should be a bracket down the bottom there, so you can just swing that out a little bit. And now we can actually remove those, or get access to those top bolts there. And we've supported the motor there, you can see. We'll just whiz off this stone guard. Now you can see what we're talking about. You can see the subframe is in the way of getting that cover off. Move this up and away from that subframe, or the subframe down. And you'll notice that the whole transaxle and motor assembly is actually bolted to the subframe. So you've got to take all these off, or loosen it, just so that can separate from it. We've loosened the subframe bolts. You can see it's dropped probably about an inch there. Over here as well. The front one under there. Loosened that. And we've removed this one completely. Removed that bracket there. And I'm just going to take those cooling lines out of the way. Now I've taken the oil out of it, and you'll notice that there's two plugs on that there. That one there's basically check the fluid level in it, and the other plug is the one that's got the fluid level tube on it. That one's a T40, and to get that one out, 17mm Allen key. And I've just removed the cooling lines there. When that stops draining, I'll just tie them out of the way. So I've removed all the bolts off that cover, and you'll notice that it's been elasticed on, so we've got to carefully pry that off without trying to bend or damage that front cover. Now I've got this steel scraper there, and I've just tried and kept it as level as I can so I don't damage it, and you can see it's already pried that off. I've left one bolt at the top just to hold that cover, and there we go, it's come away quite easily. Now, one little thing I forgot to mention, if you decide to lower this subframe more than I have there, you'll notice that the steering rack is connected to that subframe. So a good idea would be to just take that bolt out on the steering column, otherwise you could do damage to that steering column. I haven't lowered it down enough to warrant that, but just keep in mind when you're lowering or raising things like that, you don't damage anything. And you can see I've just wired those cables and hoses out of the way there, just so I've got a bit more access. There we go, covers off. Now it's just a matter of removing all those little electrical clips there and removing all those bolts off the valve body, and that'll just slide out. On the Sonax website, and just to show which bolts you need to take off, these two bottom ones, the ones down this the driver's side or the right hand side of the vehicle, and these bolts here, you don't need to take these off. Once you've got all these electrical plugs out of the way, it's just a matter of doing that. A lot of the work is done from underneath and some of the work done from above. But I've got the two wiring looms out of the way, and now we're just going to take all these 10mm bolts out. Put them out of the way there. The last little bolt there holding it, little 10mm. Now we can just take it out. It is a fairly heavy unit. There it is. Just take a note of that Z-link as well when you're putting it back. Over here you can see the band, if you can see that little rod there, and the servo pistons under here. But apart from that, there's not much else to it. You can see the little plug up the top where the loom is, if you ever need to replace the loom. Now I've left one bolt up the top. You've got the top right one, or on the right hand side of the vehicle, that's a bit longer. All the others are the same. We've also got that other one, those bottom two there in the tray. There we go. That's how it sits in the car. You've got your little Z-link. The longer section of the Z-link goes into the valve. Now these linear solenoids, you can actually recondition them. You can rebush these. Quite often the bushes wear out and create issues. And of course you can see that it's attracted a lot of fine metal there. So chances are that fine metal has gone inside the solenoid and it reduces its operation. There are our little linear solenoid repair tools there. I won't go through it right now. And there are the little bushes that we're talking about that wear out in there. And they've got Teflon on the inside of the bush. Some are just straight brass or bronze, and other ones have like a coating on there. You can get those kits, and you'll also need, after you push it in, a little reamer that just makes sure that you haven't dinged the bush when you're putting it in. But anyway, I'll leave that for another video. And we've got our brand spanking new OEM valve body. Now I'll just show you on these particular transmissions, there are two versions of the same valve body. And what's important to check is this here. The end of the solenoid comes to the end of the valve body housing. And I'll show you on the diagram what the other one looks like. The housing actually comes out to about here. You'll see that the solenoid stepped in. On our one, the end of the solenoid comes flush here, and you can see that one stepped in. So they can either have this valve body or the version like we have. So I've got the speed sensor out. You can see it's got a fair bit of metallic swarf on there. So it's always a good idea to clean your speed sensors. They are magnetic and they will attract that fine rubbish as well. And it's a lot easier if you put that speed sensor in first before you put the valve body in. Now I've got the valve body in. You got to be very careful you don't wreck the gasket when you're putting it in. If you've got a helper to just support it from the bottom till you get a couple of bolts in, that's very handy. And also you'll find that the little Z-link there, that is very tight in there, very snug. So you've got to get the angle right to be able to slide that in. You've got all the bolts in. Just take your time, make sure you don't miss anything, triple check your work as you go along. And now we're ready to put the loom down, push it into those little clips and clip the solenoids back in. Just make sure that the loom is all nice and clean, give it a blowout. Okay, I've got all the wiring back on. You can just see it through that gap there around the radiator. And hopefully you've taken a note of which coloured looms go where, or wires, and also where the loom goes behind which brackets. A little bit hard to get a good shot of it. Now these side covers, out of the factory they come elasticed on. I'm going to put one of these Duraprene gaskets on this one. Double check, make sure the Z-link's in, you've connected your speed sensor and you've plugged in all the solenoids. Now the filler plug is over here, and the idea is to overfill it a little bit, and then we can just check the fluid level after when we take that little plug, the smaller plug on the bottom of the transmission out to check the oil level. Quite often you've got that air box here, you can actually fill it from the bottom, but we'll just fill it from here. A little bit easier while we've got all that out. Okay, we've got everything back together. We've overfilled the oil a little bit, and the idea is to get it between 50 and 60 degrees because the oil expands with heat. And you take out that middle plug and the oil should be just barely trickling out of there. And now we can go out and take it for a test run. Back from a test run. It's not doing that wavering when it's in 4th, 5th and 6th anymore. It will continue to readapt on its own slowly, but just got the covers to put back on there and the one on the bottom, and the job's done. Anyway, I hope that helps. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave any comments or suggestions in the section below. Thank you for watching.